How are you doing? Taylor. Taylor is in
Hi,
the
sir. How
house.
are you?
Hi, sir. All good.
Awesome,
How are you?
awesome. Are you guys writing next week?
No.
No, sir.
Okay, right. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen so that we know what's happening today. Um, Thumbs up if you can see. That's your learning unit 4. That's our mind map. All right, so I think I have a good screenshot and I can switch off my camera. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, so depending on how you are accessing this recording, you know the drill. And I will try my best to keep it also short, so that our last recording was quite short and straight to the point, and that's what we would like. And so we have a very foundational learning unit, right? So let me put it this way, in a way that all of you can understand. Today we are completing basically our foundation. So we've laid everything for our foundation. So learning unit 5, I believe, will be the walls of this building of knowledge. Let me put it that way. All right. So I'm just trying my best to make you picture um, where we are, and how far we've come and what is remaining. Right. So let's say that today we are going to complete basically the 4 corners of our foundation. Everything is laid. So this evening we're laying our last corner, right, of this beautiful building of knowledge. Learning unit 5 will be the walls, and you know the walls are very important, right? Learning unit 6 will be the roof, because we need to have a roof over our heads, right? Making sure that, everything is safe. And learning unit 7 would just be the finishing touch. So just the best way to picture this so that you know where we're going, right? And obviously, we're going to test this building to make sure that it's solid, that it can withstand, floods and rain and whatever you can think of, strong winds, etc. Right. So I know sometimes, it could be quite difficult to get a picture, but it's always, especially when we do have some theory, we always need to be able to represent the abstract. All right. So learning unit 4, managerial accounting. Let's see what we have. So we have these 2 things that we need to cover: the cost concept and the break-even analysis. And you have this, and not only this, the session would allow you also to ask questions in case you've been going through learning unit 4. So you will be able to actually ask very good questions, right? Please don't hesitate if you have questions, especially questions directly in the textbook. We will do our best to cover all the questions that you have. Right. So for the cost concepts, we have about 4 things. We're just going to keep it simple, right? So we have the production versus non-production cost, product versus period cost, Other cost classifications, very important, especially in your readings. So we might not really cover quite a lot when it comes to other cost classifications, but it is a section in your textbook, in Learning Unit 4, and it's a fairly easy read. One thing that I want to tell you is that you do not need to memorize anything. Everything must make sense. And that's the reason why we're having such an important session, is that when we're going to be laying down these bricks, you need to be able to understand actually, down to the bones, what this means, and to picture it. And always have in mind either your business, either any business ideas that you have, so that you can represent yourself. How would these concepts really apply in future for me? Because that's the difference between simple theory and the skill that you are learning, is that the skill, you need to be able to apply it. All right. So we have product versus period cost. Actually, product is straight in line with production. Production, product cost, these are similar concepts. Non-production, period cost, these are very similar concepts. And you would agree with me if you've gone through Learning Unit 4 already. So these are more or less the same concepts, all right? And then you do have other cost classifications that will play a very, very important role when we go to Learning Unit 5. So Learning Unit 5, Learning Unit 6, some of these you might read. If you do get a good grasp, you will see them appearing, and actually we will be applying them in Learning Unit 5, 6, and 7. Cost behavior, very, very, very important concept. Very simple, but I would like you to understand it, because once you understand it, that's it. It's going to stick for life. And if you do not understand it, don't be ashamed of raising your head, raising your hand and asking the question, or saying, I don't understand this concept. And it's always good to have a lively conversation in class. And of course, break-even analysis. That's quite important. The concept in CVP analysis and calculating the break-even point. Very, very important stuff, right? And I say again, some of these, once you understand it for life, right? So if you would give me just a few seconds so that I can shift my screen to what we're going to be doing this evening. So please, could you confirm the thumb up that you can see my screen? Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. All right. So this is very important, and I'm just going to be also reading straight from the prompt, but we all, and you can read, and we're having sort of a conversation between us, even though you might not be speaking. But feel free at any time to raise your hand and to ask any question that you have. Right. So one of the key things you need to picture here is, how do we come to actually determining the selling price? And that's very important. And you can't be talking about the selling price or the price at which you're going to be marketing your product if you do not understand costs. So these two concepts go hand in hand. And actually, we use them quite often interchangeably. But you know these concepts. You often talk about it, but we want you now to understand the application of it. So, so the selling price gets set too low, profitability suffer. I agree. And I hope you also agree. So if we are setting the selling price too low, we know that could affect our profitability. And obviously, if it's going to affect our profitability, the business will suffer. And basically, the company need to make sure that they know what they're doing. So how can you make strategic decisions about pricing, production, and growth without a true understanding of your cost? So that's where basically managerial accounting comes in. So that will be the tool to help you do that, right? And can I just get from you, how do you define managerial accounting? Remember, we did cover this in learning unit 1 and 2. What will be the difference between managerial accounting and financial accounting? Any idea? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have to, or if you feel like you can type. Don't go to the textbook. I just want you to recall what are the main things. Just always think in terms of concept. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear about managerial accounting? And always, guys, it's never a mystery. Start by the definition. Start by looking at the words that you are seeing. Anyone feel free to unmute?
So managerial accounting mainly focuses on the future of the company, whereas financial accounting focuses on the reports, like the standardized reports of the company.
It's a nice try, actually, Tammy, and I like that. It's quite a nice try. Although, like I was saying again, one of the clues that I will give you again, it says it in managerial accounting. Look at the definition of each word. Managerials. What do you see there? Managers. So that would be an accounting that is really mostly used by who? Do you see that? And where? Absolutely. And that's how you should think about these things. It's like, okay, managerial accounting. I don't need actually to have the definition in mind, but it says managerial. So definitely that will be an accounting that managers are using, and that will be something they're using internally inside the company. Financial accounting will be more geared toward external stakeholders like Sierra wrote there. So that's a very good. And guys, again, there's not wrong or right in my classroom. In my classroom, we debate, we have a conversation, and you can yourself look at your knowledge and say, right, I can adjust my knowledge accordingly. Right. So that says it. Okay. So, and you have this example in your textbook. You saw it, right? And depending on how far you went in your textbook and or how far you understand everything, or through the journey, right, of knowledge, right? But this company, let's say my furnitures, and actually you have beautiful images that are there, right? So that's exactly what they're selling. That's exactly what they're selling. So you can see it live, right? So this Letsema Furnishers is a very successful business, right? So the opportunity here is that they can launch a new product, a replica of their best-selling dining room suite, named the Jupiter Star Set. This will always remain in your mind because it is in your textbook. JSS, right? So the goal is to produce and sell 200 JSS units per month. That's the goal that they have. The dilemma before committing, a financial manager needs to build a precise cost model. What is the true cost to produce one JSS? And guys, again, these are the questions that I was raising, if you remember, a couple of sessions ago. What would be the first thing that you would think of, about any business that you would like to do? Whatever you have in mind, you'll always think about how much profit am I going to make, right? And then when you fixate on profit, because obviously everybody wants to look at the money, right? So after that, you would say, but yes, but how much work do I need to put in, right? How much actually do I need to produce? What would be the ideal protection for me to get to making the money that I would like to make, right? That those questions that you have in your mind, that's everything to do uh, with financial management. It's financial management. You are already doing financial management. You just don't know it, right? So, what is the true cost? What is the true cost? And this question will come back again, even in learning unit 5, even at a greater degree, because now we would even go into manufacturing companies, right? Very big companies. And we will ask also the same question. But we are starting today at the level of a single company, and we need to understand this concept, right? So, what is the true cost to produce one JSS? Very interesting, right? So, what does that tell us? What that tells us is that we need to know what are the costs that are involved. And more importantly, how many must they sell, turn a profit? This touches straight into the break-even analysis. Remember that concept, break-even analysis. All that it says is that we need to come to a point where we know if we produce this much, we would have reached a point where we are not making a loss, but we are also not making a profit. That's a very important point. And the sooner we get to that point, the better, because now we can start making money. We can start making profits. All right? It's quite interesting, right? Taxi drivers, for example, I remember having a conversation with them and I say, but how are you guys being paid? They said, we just need to give a certain amount to our bosses. So per week, when we start the week, we need to give a certain amount to our bosses. So whatever we are doing, we are just rushing to get that amount. Once we give that amount, the rest on top of that is pure profit for us. Pure profit for us. And that's quite interesting. But that taxi driver is basically saying one thing. I'm doing financial management. I'm a financial manager of my own company, of my own business. Isn't that interesting? So you are in your own right. And maybe some of you even actually with actual companies, actual registered companies, I wouldn't doubt it. And by the way, let me ask that question. Who has a registered company here? Anyone? In my past class, I had people. So it seems like nobody yet. Nobody yet, but let's just say nobody yet. Right. Okay. So, but they gave us quite interesting. And the reason why I want this for you to picture and to have always to picture these concepts, it's that it's going to make a question, not something live. something that is alive and not something that is dead, right? So you can see the number of units. Can you all see the number of units? We know the number of units. So by reading this story, we know the number of units. Are we all on the same page? Can you give a thumb up? That's the first thing that comes to your mind when you're reading this question is that, oh, I can see the number of units that we need to produce. And what is interesting, this is a projected production. Remember that this is a goal they have. They haven't produced yet. This is a goal, meaning in future, this is what they would like to achieve. This is important because it will come over and over again when we're going to be making the difference between projected versus actual. We projected so much, but actually, what did we get? And so we can look at the difference, right? All right, so we know the raw materials, so they give us 20 kg of yellow wood per unit. So to produce 1 unit of JSS, we need 20 kg of yellow wood. And we have actually the price of that. And I can see actually Ciara is saying 20 kg multiplied by 30. Yes, so for our raw material or direct material. But also another information is the direct labor. You can see the direct labor there. All right, so you can see it's 400 per unit. So we know whatever labor that we're going to contract, that will be the amount that we will spend per unit produced. Are we on the same page? And we move on. All good? For the class. Princess, are we all good? Haley, are we all good? All right. Awesome. All right. So now let's build now some skills because we need to, especially when you're building skills, you need to have a toolkit, right? All right. So managerial accounting provide a set of powerful tools to analyze cost and to guide strategic decisions. And what will be actually the strategic decision? It will be, for example, if we know the cost, then we can determine the price. How am I going to put a price while I don't know the cost? All right. So the first tool that we need to have in our toolkit is a cost classification. That's very important. Always start there. You need to identify and categorize every single cost involved in your business. And it's true. You can't control what you can't see. You need to identify every cost. The second would be you need to look at the cost behavior. How does this cost behave? And it's always about how does that cost react to the production volume. If we increase the production, how does the cost react to that increase in production? Very, very important. And then the final thing would be, obviously, what we've seen is the CVP. CVP stands for what? It stands for cost, volume, profit analysis. So somehow we want you to understand and to build a model where there is a relationship between cost, volume, and profit. These things work together. Why? Because that's how, for example, you'll be able to find out what is the break-even point. How can I grow? All right. Okay. So let's go now. Let's delve deep. Let's go into the first tool. What did we say? We need to identify every cost. And this is a very good thing. We have two primary category. Two primary categories, sorry. So when you're looking at the business, you are looking at production or manufacturing. Production, because we are talking about any business out there. But manufacturing, especially within this course, manufacturing will be the most sophisticated type of business. And that's the reason why we have a chapter dedicated to manufacturing. If you understand manufacturing, you can understand everything. By the way, do you remember the short story I gave you last time about McDonald's and why McDonald's became such a big brand, global? I mean, a global brand. Just McDonald's, just burgers, and they became, bigger than the GDP of some countries. Why? Is because actually the founder, the founders of McDonald's, with the name, that's the family, the McDonald family, they simply imitated the Ford manufacturing plant. Can you imagine? Ford, Ford that makes cars. They imitated how the scientific process of making cars, how everything works in that manufacturing plant. That's how they structured the McDonald's kitchen for efficiency. Isn't that interesting? So that's the reason why manufacturing is very important. And if you understand manufacturing, you are good to go in any venture that you would like to do. All right. All right. So all costs incurred to convert material into a finished product are called production or manufacturing cost. All right. So we take input, we transform the input, and we have an output. What does that remind you of? That's your economics 101, right? So input, transformation, output. So, but all those costs that we are incurring to convert that material, raw material, into the finished product, that is the production cost. All that makes sense. How? Non-production, non-manufacturing cost, all other costs besides the cost of manufacturing. So non-manufacturing, non-production tells you that everything that is not production or manufacturing cost, definitely you should categorize that as either administration or selling or distribution. Marketing, sales team, those costs are not production cost. Administration, those costs are not production costs because they are picture them outside the factory. All right. So there is the cost of making and the cost of selling and managing. Right. So within the manufacturing cost, you probably heard it in the recordings that I've given you. I call these, just for remembrance purposes for you student, the three musketeers. These will always be there. Until the end of this course, they will always be there. In your exam, they will be there, right? They will be part of your life for the rest of your life. Direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overhead. Direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overhead. Even if I ask you in the middle of the night, you should be able to tell me direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overhead. It sounds silly, but it's very important, So this sticks with you, right? So material, like we said, material is everything that we can physically press into the finished product. And the example is the yellow wood used in our company here, all right? The direct labor will be the touch, the physical touch. So if a laborer or a worker is touching the product, that touch labor, right, is direct labor. So the carpenters that are assembling the JSS, that is direct labor. Now, these two are the direct material and direct labor. Everything that is indirect becomes overheads, overheads, right? Simple English, right? So anything that we cannot trace or easily trace to a specific unit. So that's what we call manufacturing overhead. For example, when they have built the set, we can't see the nails or the glue. You can't really look at something and see the glue. You could. And that's the part where we are having this conversation, is that some of the things you'll be like, yeah, but yeah, I can see nails. The glue, I can see it. But when you're looking, for example, at a chair, it's either the wood or the metal that was used that sticks out, right? Indirect labor is much, much easier. And you would agree with me, because, for example, the factory supervisor, he's not touching the product. The workers are touching the product. The workers are assembling the product. The supervisor is just there to manage the workers. He's not physically touching. So you see the difference there. So his salary, we won't say that that's that direct labor. We won't say that. Will we? Other examples, the rent on the factory. Remember, it's not the rent for the admin building. It is the rent for the factory, the place where we are manufacturing. Do you see? But can we see the rent into the chair that is being produced? No. So it is indirect. The depreciation of the machinery. Can we see the depreciation of the machinery in the final product, in the chairs? No, we can't see that. The salary of the factory cleaner. Can we see it in the finished product? We can't see that. So is this concept, and that's the part where I ask the question, are you okay with this concept? Does this make sense? Or do you have a question? I would assume somebody could have maybe asked me a question. Why would the glue be indirect material? Because we're using the glue straight on the chairs. Because it's very difficult to quantify the exact amount of glue we are using. You see, and that part is very important. We know exactly the amount of wood that of glue that we are using. But do we know the amount of wood that we are using? Yes, we know. So there is a direct correlation, if I can put it that way. Does that make sense? Perfect. Guys, this is important. This is foundational. It is very important. If you don't understand this, it's going to you're going to struggle with the rest, right? So let me know if there is something here that is not right, that is a miss. All right, so non-manufacturing costs, we can categorize them into two sets, and one would be the marketing, distribution, and selling costs. And this speaks for itself, right? The administrative cost will be also separate. So you are looking at executive, organizational, and clerical costs associated with the general management of the organization. Salaries of executives, accounting staff wages, the secretary, office supplies. What you would notice is that picture them, they are sitting in the admin building and not in the manufacturing plant. All right? So they have nothing to do with the actual production. Right? Marketing, distribution, your sales team, your marketing team at your company. Cost incurred to secure customer orders and deliver the finished product. Those costs are not manufacturing, they are non-manufacturing. And we will touch on this, order gating costs. Order gating cost. So sales commission, advertising, shipping, very important, shipping, carriage, freight, the salaries, I could even add the commission of the sales team, right? All these are parts of the marketing, distribution, and selling cost. All right, so now let's come to this example. Because we always now need to look at the practical side of it, the numbers. Remember again, what we have projected is 200 units, right? And that should always ring the loudest bell. Is always think, okay, but what is the volume? What is the volume? 200 units, that tells you the volume, right? So 200 units. And we will start with the revenue, actually, the production cost. What will be the production cost? We need to add the costs, right? So we need to add the direct material, the three musketeers, like I told you, direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overhead. So we start with the production cost. We have those three. How did we get to direct material of 120,000? Ciara gave it to us already, right? Ciara, how did you do it? Wonderful, right? So we know that to produce one unit, we need 20 kg. Perfect. 1 unit, 20 kg. What is the cost per kg? 30 rand. Are we good? So 30 multiplied by 20 kg will give us 1 unit of JSS. 20 multiplied by 30 is 600. Now, if we would like to find now the total production, we need to multiply by the number of units that we need to produce, which is 200. Are we good? 20 multiplied by 30 multiplied by 200. Is that clear? The rest of the class, is that clear? 20 multiply by 30, multiply by 200. Yes. Guys, always bring up your calculator. Come on. I could do actually a mental calculation on this one because it's not that complicated, but always have your calculator, right? So 20 multiplied by 30 multiplied by 200.